Ethan's eyes slowly opened. He felt dizzy, and there was a sharp pain in his side. The first thing he noticed was the sound of wind blowing over dry, rocky ground. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy, like he had not slept in days. He sat up and looked around. His shuttle, the small one he used for short trips, was in pieces behind him. Metal panels were scattered everywhere, and smoke was rising into the pale yellow sky. It was hard to breathe, and his hands shook as he tried to stand. Ethan brushed the dust off his jacket. He looked at the small computer on his wrist, hoping it still worked. The screen flickered but did not show any useful information. No maps, no signals, nothing. He was lost. He remembered entering this part of space, a region his boss at the space station called uncharted and unsafe. But he never expected anything like this. He had been sent to fix a satellite, that was all. There was no sign of the satellite. Now, his throat felt dry, so he walked to a supply box near the wreckage. The lid was stuck, but he forced it open and found a bottle of water and a protein bar. He drank slowly and ate just enough to stop the hunger. As he sat there, he tried to think, how did he survive the crash? The last thing he remembered was a flash of light and a loud noise. He thought maybe he was lucky. Maybe someone saved him? But as he looked around, there was no one else. Ethan walked away from the shuttle. The land was strange. Rocks jutted out of the ground like teeth, and the sand was not yellow or brown, but a dark gray color. He saw twisted trees with black leaves and odd blue flowers growing between stones. Far away, he saw mountains rising under thick clouds. The sun was not the bright yellow of Earth, but dull and distant. He checked his wrist computer again. There was a weak signal, but it faded as he moved. He remembered training for situations like this. The rules were simple. Find shelter, look for water, wait for help. But something in his mind told him this was not an ordinary crash. The air felt strange, thick with electricity. He heard his own voice echo in his head, like he was talking to himself from far away. Ethan followed a narrow path between rocks. He did not know where he was going, but walking felt better than waiting by the shuttle. As he moved, he saw shapes in the dust. For a moment, he thought he saw a person watching him from behind a tree, but when he looked again, no one was there. After some time, Ethan found a strange door in a cliffside. It was made of smooth metal and had no handle. He reached out and touched it. The door slid open with a soft click and cold air rushed out. Inside it was dark but safe from the wind. He stepped inside and the door closed behind him. He was alone in the darkness, but soon a faint blue light lit up the walls. Ethan's heart pounded as he looked around. The walls were covered with wires and screens. Some screens blinked with static. Others showed strange symbols he did not understand. There was a narrow hallway leading deeper into the base. He called out, but no one answered. He walked slowly, his footsteps echoing. At the end of the hallway, he found a small room. On the floor, someone lay still, a man, badly hurt, with blood on his shirt. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The man looked just like him. Same hair, same eyes, same scar above the eyebrow. It was as if he was looking at himself, the wounded. Man opened his eyes, his face twisted in pain. He tried to speak, but only a weak whisper came out. Ethan knelt beside him. "Who are you?" he asked. His voice shook. The other Ethan tried to smile. "It's me, it's you, or another you." He coughed, and blood came from his mouth. Ethan felt cold all over. He tried to help the wounded man sit up, but the other Ethan pushed his hand away. "Listen," the dying man said. "Whatever happens, don't trust her." Ethan stared, confused and scared. "Who? Who shouldn't I trust?" The man's eyes closed for a moment. He was losing strength. "She find you. She always does. She looks like she wants to help. She... His voice faded. Ethan felt panic rising in his chest. He tried to ask more questions, but the other Ethan was too weak. The dying man pressed something into Ethan's hand, a small metal cube. "Keep this safe. Don't let her take it." With those words, the wounded Ethan gave a shudder, then was still. The room was silent except for the hum of machines in the walls. Ethan sat back, holding the metal cube tightly. He could not believe what had just happened. Was this a trick? Was he dreaming? He looked around the room for clues. There were empty food wrappers, a torn jacket, a broken computer. On the wall, someone had scratched a message into the metal. Don't let her in. Ethan stood up and left the room. He felt sick, his mind full of questions. Who was the woman the other Ethan warned about? Why did she want the cube? How did he end up here on this strange planet, meeting himself dying on the floor? He wandered through the base. Some doors were locked, others opened easily. In a small storage room, he found a box full of data chips. Most were broken, but one still worked. He plugged it into his wrist computer. The screen showed a video of himself, older, tired, talking in a quiet voice. If you're seeing this, it means the loop has started again. You crashed here, just like I did? You met her, just like I did. She will tell you she can help you escape. Don't believe her. The only way out is to trust yourself. If you find the cube, keep it hidden. Ethan felt the hairs on his neck stand. Up. He checked the cube. It was cold and heavy. There were small symbols on it, but he could not read them. He tried to remember everything the dying man said. Don't trust her. But who was she? He looked at the door, half expecting someone to walk in. The base was empty, but he felt like he was being watched. He searched for more messages, finding only scraps and broken things. On a wall, someone had written a list of names. Some he did not recognize, but one stood out, Mara, next to her name. Someone had scratched a warning, "She lies." Ethan sat on the floor, his head in his hands. He wanted to wake up, but he knew this was real. He was alone on a planet with no way home, holding a strange cube, warned by himself not to trust. A woman he had never met. Hours passed. He tried to rest, but sleep did not come easily. He kept hearing the dying man's voice. The warning was clear, but it only made him more afraid. Suddenly, his wrist computer beeped. A new signal appeared, weak but steady. It was a distress call. The message was simple. Help me. My name is Mara. I am lost. Please, if anyone is out there, answer. Ethan's heart raced. Was this the woman from the warnings? Was she really in trouble, or was this part of the trap? He stood up and looked at the metal cube in his hand. He had a choice to make. Go out and find Mara or stay in the base and hope for rescue. Either way, he would have to trust himself. Because he could not trust anyone else, he took a deep breath and walked toward the door, ready to face whatever waited outside. Ethan stepped out of the hidden base, holding the metal cube tightly in his hand. The cold air made him shiver. The sky was turning orange as the strange sun began to set. The rocky land looked even more lonely now. He thought about the message. From Mara, was she real? Was she the woman his other self warned him about? He wanted to help someone in need, but he could not forget the dying man's words. Ethan walked carefully, following the weak signal on his wrist computer. The device beeped every few seconds, showing him the way. He moved between sharp rocks and dry bush. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Sometimes he heard distant sounds like whispers or strange clicks, but he saw no one. The land felt empty and dangerous. After walking for some time, Ethan saw a small camp near a group of boulders. A thin line of smoke rose into the air. He crouched behind a rock, watching the camp. There was a woman sitting by a small fire, trying to warm her hands. She looked up and glanced around as if she knew someone was nearby. Ethan's heart beat faster. This had to be Mara. She wore a torn jacket and her hair was tied back. She looked tired and scared. For a moment, Ethan felt sorry for her. Maybe she really needed help. He remembered the message. Don't trust her, but it was hard to ignore someone in trouble. He took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the rock. Mara turned quickly, fear in her eyes. She picked up a small metal rod for protection. It's okay, Ethan said, raising his hands. I'm not here to hurt you. Mara watched him for a moment, then slowly put down the rod. She looked relieved, but still nervous. Who are you? She asked. My name is Ethan, he said. My ship crashed here. I found your signal. Mara's face softened. Thank you for coming. I've been alone for days. I thought no one would ever answer. Ethan walked closer to the fire. He noticed her hands shaking. He sat across from her, keeping the metal cube hidden in his pocket. "What happened to your ship?" he asked. Mara looked into the flames. "I was sent to check on some old research equipment. My shuttle was hit by something. I woke up here. There are machines on this planet. They hunt anything that moves." Ethan nodded. He had seen strange machines in the base. Some were broken, others looked like they had been torn apart. "I saw a base in the cliffs," he said. "Have you been there?" Mara shook her head. "No, I've stayed away from the cliffs. Too many dangers. The machines search that area a lot." She paused. "Do you have food or water?" "I'm running low." Ethan gave her a small bottle of water and half a protein bar. Mara took them, her hands trembling as she ate. He watched her closely, searching for any sign she was lying. She seemed tired and scared, just like him. But the warning from his other self kept repeating in his mind. As they sat by the fire, Mara asked, "How did you find me?" Ethan thought about the messages and the other version of himself. He did not want to scare her, so he just said, "I followed your distress signal. My computer picked it up." "Are you sure you're alone?" Mara nodded. "I haven't seen anyone else. Sometimes I hear voices, but I think it's just the wind." She pulled her knees close to her chest. "I'm scared, Ethan. I don't know how long I can survive out here." Ethan believed some of her story. The fear in her eyes seemed real, but he could not forget the warnings scratched on the base's walls. He remembered the video of himself saying, "She will tell you she can help you escape. Don't believe her." He decided to keep watching her closely. Mara looked up at him. "There's an old communication tower north of here. If we can reach it, maybe we can send a signal for help. But the path is dangerous. The machines guard it. I tried once, but I had to run away." Ethan remembered the tower. He saw it on a map in the base, but it looked broken and abandoned. Still, it was their only hope. "We should go together," he said. "It's safer than being alone." Mara nodded, hope in her eyes. "Thank you, Ethan. I don't want to die out here." They spent the night by the fire. Ethan took turns sleeping and keeping watch. He heard strange sounds in the darkness, metal feet scraping over rocks, soft beeps in the distance. Sometimes Mara talked in her sleep. She said names Ethan did not know, and once she whispered, "Don't leave me." He wondered if she was dreaming about someone she lost, or if she was talking to him. In the morning, they packed what little they had and set out for the communication tower. Ethan led the way, using his wrist computer to check for signals from the machines. They walked slowly, careful to stay hidden behind rocks and bush. After an hour, they heard a loud noise. A small, spider-like machine crawled out from behind. A stone. Its eyes glowed red and it moved fast. Mara grabbed Ethan's arm, fear in her face. Ethan acted quickly, picking up a rock and throwing it at the machine. The machine jumped back, making a sharp buzzing sound, then sped away into the shadows. "That was close," Mara said, breathing hard. Ethan nodded. "We need to be careful. There may be more of them." They kept moving, taking a long path around a steep hill. Ethan felt tired and sore, but he pushed forward. He kept glancing at Mara, wondering if she was really afraid or just pretending. She moved quietly, always looking over her shoulder. Soon they reached a narrow canyon. The path was blocked by two broken machines. Ethan checked to make sure they were truly dead. He saw blue liquid leaking from their sides and their lights were off. He and Mara climbed over the broken metal. On the other side of the canyon, Mara stopped and pointed. "There it is, the tower." Ethan saw the tall metal structure rising above the rocks. It looked damaged, but he saw solar panels still shining in the sun. They hurried toward it, but as they got closer, Ethan noticed something strange. There were old footprints in the dust and broken pieces of computers. Someone else had been here before. Mara looked worried. "What if the machines are inside?" Ethan shook his head. "We have to try. It's our only chance." They entered the tower through a side door. The inside was dark and cold. Panels hung from the walls and old wires trailed along the floor. There was a main control room upstairs. Ethan led the way, flashlight in hand. In the control room, he found a broken computer and a dusty chair. He checked the computer, hoping it would turn on. It made a clicking sound, then a screen flashed to life. The words "System Locked" appeared. Ethan looked for a way to unlock it. As he worked, Mara stood by the door, watching the hallway. Suddenly, Ethan's wrist computer beeped. A new message appeared. It was another video of himself. This version looked even older and more tired than the last. The video played, "If you're seeing this, you reached the tower. Mara will tell you she can help you. Do not let her touch the cube. Whatever she says, don't give it to her." Ethan froze, glancing at Mara. She turned quickly, trying to see what he was looking at. He closed the video and hid his wrist. Mara noticed his strange look. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Ethan nodded, but inside he was scared. The warnings kept coming, always about Mara, always about the cube. He felt it heavy in his pocket. He turned back to the computer and kept working. Mara stepped closer, looking over his shoulder. "What are you doing?" she asked softly. "I'm just trying to send a message for help," Ethan said. He kept his voice calm. "Maybe we can both get out of here." Mara smiled. "Thank you, Ethan. I knew you would help me." Ethan nodded, but he did not trust her. He decided to keep the cube hidden, no matter what. As he worked, he found a hidden panel under the desk. Inside, he discovered a small notebook. The first page was written in his own handwriting. It said, "If you want to survive, trust no one. Especially Mara." Ethan closed the notebook, his heart pounding. He did not know how many versions of himself had come here before, or how many warnings they had left. But one thing was clear: he was in more danger than he thought. Outside, the wind howled. The machines were searching. Mara stood close, her eyes never leaving Ethan. He wondered if she could sense his fear, or if she was just waiting for him to make a mistake. He knew he would have to be very careful. Only one thing was certain: he could not trust anyone but himself. Ethan stood in the control room, feeling the weight of the cube in his pocket. The warning from his own voice in the video kept repeating in his mind. Mara was close, watching him, her eyes filled with worry and hope. He wanted to trust her, but the warnings were too clear. Something about her was not right. Even though she looked scared and lost like him, Ethan tried again to unlock the computer. He typed a few codes, but nothing worked. Mara stepped closer and put her hand on his shoulder. Ethan almost jumped. He looked up at her, trying to act calm. "Do you need help?" she asked, her voice soft. "I'm fine," Ethan said. He kept his hand over the cube in his pocket, not wanting her to see it. Mara moved to the window, looking out at the empty land. "The machines will come soon," she said quietly. "They always do when someone tries to use the tower." Ethan wondered how she knew that. He remembered her saying she had never been to the cliffs or the tower. He tried not to show his worry. He needed more answers, but he knew he had to be careful with his questions. "Have you seen anyone else on this planet?" Ethan asked Mara. Shook her head. "Only machines. I hear voices sometimes, but I think they are in my head." Ethan nodded. He wondered if the voices were like the warnings he kept getting. Maybe the planet played tricks on people's minds. Mara looked at him with tired eyes. "I just want to go home," she whispered. Ethan felt sorry for her, even if he could not trust her. He wanted to help, but he had to find out the truth first. He checked the notebook again, turning the pages. Some notes were in his own handwriting, some in a style he did not know. Most messages were warnings. "She is not who she says she is. Don't listen to her. And keep the cube hidden." On the last page there was a map drawn by hand. It showed the tower, the base, and a hidden path leading to a place called the Heart. Ethan put the notebook away. Mara sat down on the floor, pulling her knees to her chest. She looked small and afraid. Ethan felt his heart soften, but he did not let his guard down. Outside, the wind was getting stronger. Ethan heard the faint sound of metal scraping on stone. He peeked through the window and saw small machines moving between the rocks. Their eyes glowed red as they searched for signs of life. "We have to be quiet," Ethan said. "The machines are near," Mara nodded. If they find us, they will call the bigger ones. Ethan remembered the broken machines in the canyon. He wondered if other people, maybe other versions of himself, had fought them and lost. He looked around the room for something to block the door, but there was nothing heavy enough. Suddenly, there was a loud bang from below. Mara jumped to her feet. Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the window. "Stay back," he whispered. They waited in silence. The footsteps of the machines grew louder. Ethan could hear their sharp voices, almost like a language, but he could not understand the words. Mara pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide with fear. After a few minutes, the noise faded. The machines had passed by, missing the tower for now. Ethan let out a long breath. Mara's hands were shaking. "Thank you," she said softly. Nodded. But he was thinking about the map in the notebook. Maybe the heart was a safe place, or maybe it was the source of all the trouble. He decided to ask Mara, "Do you know what the heart is?" he asked. Mara looked confused. "No, I've never heard of it." Ethan thought she might be telling the truth, but it was hard to know. He decided to keep the map a secret for now. The sun was setting outside and darkness filled the tower. Ethan knew they could not stay there forever. The machines would come back. They needed a new plan? "We should move at night," Ethan said. "The machines see better in the day," Mara agreed. "But where will we go?" Ethan did not want to tell her about the map, so he just said, "Away from the tower. We can try to find another safe place." They packed their things and waited for the sky to grow darker. Mara moved quietly, never far from Ethan. She asked him questions about his life, about Earth, about his family. Ethan answered simply, trying not to give away too much. When it was fully dark, they slipped out of the tower. The air was cold and the stars above were bright and strange. Ethan used his wrist computer to scan for machines. The signal was weak, but it showed the direction of the hidden path from the notebook. They moved quickly and quietly. Mara stayed close behind Ethan, sometimes grabbing his arm when she heard strange sounds. They crossed dry fields, climbed over sharp rocks, and ducked under twisted trees. Sometimes Ethan thought he saw shadows moving in the dark, but when he looked again, nothing was there. After an hour, they reached the start of the path. It was narrow and hidden by tall grass. Ethan checked his wrist computer. The signal was getting stronger, leading them deeper into the land. As they walked, Mara began to talk more. She told Ethan about her job on a space station, about her dreams of seeing new worlds. She asked Ethan what he wanted most. He thought about it for a while, then said, "To go home. To know the truth about this place." Mara smiled sadly. "Me too." They stopped to rest by a small stream. Ethan drank water and watched Mara as she washed her face. She looked tired and worn, but there was something strange about the way she moved, too careful, too controlled. Ethan remembered the warnings. He tried to think if Mara had done anything truly dangerous, but she had only helped him so far. Still, he kept his guard up. Suddenly, Mara leaned close. "Ethan," she whispered, "what are you hiding?" Ethan froze. "What do you mean?" Mara's eyes searched his face. "You have been quiet since we left the tower. Is there something you're not telling me?" Ethan shook his head. "No, I'm just tired." Mara nodded, but she did not look. Convinced, she sat back, watching him closely. They moved on. The path became rocky and hard to follow. Ethan led the way, checking the map in the notebook when Mara was not looking. The path twisted between high cliffs. The air grew colder, and the land seemed even more strange. After some time, they reached a cave at the end of the path. The map said the heart was inside. Ethan felt nervous. He remembered the dying man's words, "Don't trust her." But he also knew he had to find answers. He stepped into the cave, flashlight in hand. The walls were smooth and cold. Strange. Lights glowed in the stone, showing the way forward. Mara followed him, her footsteps soft. At the end of the cave, they found a large door. It was made of metal and covered with symbols like those on the cube. Ethan reached out and touched the door. It slid open with a low hum. Inside was a small room filled with machines. In the center was a chair, and around it were screens showing images of the land outside. Ethan saw himself on the screens, walking, talking, meeting Mara. It was as if someone had been watching them the whole time. Ethan stepped forward. The screens changed, showing other versions of himself, older, younger, some hurt, some running. Mara stood by the door, her face pale. "What is this place?" Ethan asked it. Mara shook her head. "I don't know." Ethan walked to the chair and found another notebook, just like the one from the tower. He opened it. The first page said, "This is where it all begins and ends." He felt a chill. "Mara, we need to find out what this place is. I think it's the key to everything." Mara nodded, but Ethan noticed her hands shaking. She looked scared, but also something else, nervous. Maybe guilty. Ethan put the cube on the desk and tried to connect it to the machines. The screens flickered, then showed new images, a woman looking just like Mara, talking to someone in the shadows. Ethan listened closely. "We can't let him escape," the woman said. "He must not remember." Ethan looked at Mara. "What does this mean?" Mara stepped back, her eyes wide. "I don't know. I swear I don't know." Ethan did not know what to believe, but now he knew the truth was close, hidden in the cave, waiting for him to find it. He would have to face the machines, the warnings, and Mara herself to learn what was real and what was a lie. Ethan stood in the cave's hidden room, surrounded by the soft glow of strange screens and the gentle hum of old machines. His heart pounded as he stared at the image on the screen, Mara speaking to someone in the shadows. The words from the video echoed in his mind. "We can't let him escape. He must not remember." Ethan felt cold. He wanted to believe Mara, to trust her, but every new clue made him feel more alone. Mara stepped back from the desk, her hands shaking. "Ethan, I don't know what this is. Please believe me." Her voice was thin and afraid, but Ethan noticed how her eyes flickered between the cube and the door. He picked up the cube and held it tight. "Why does the cube matter, Mara? Why is every version of me so afraid to give it to you?" Mara shook her head, tears forming in her eyes. "I don't know. I don't even remember how I got here. I just want to go home." "Please, Ethan, you have to help me." Ethan wanted to believe her, but the voices of his other selves were louder. Now, he turned away from her and began searching the room. On a shelf, he found a small metal key and another notebook. The first page was written in the same shaky handwriting as the last one. "Only the truth can break the cycle. But she will try to stop you. Don't listen." Ethan put the notebook in his pocket. He looked at Mara, who was crying quietly in the corner. For a moment, he almost put down his guard. He took a step toward her, but just then, the screens changed again. This time, they showed a new image, the outside of the cave, where small machines were gathering. Ethan's wrist computer beeped a warning. He checked the signal. The machines were coming closer. There were more of them than before, moving in tight lines, searching for any sign of life. "We have to go," Ethan said quickly. "The machines are coming. We can't stay here." Mara wiped her eyes. She followed him out of the room and back through the cave. The cold air made them move faster. Ethan led the way, flashlight shaking in his hand. As they neared the entrance, he heard the sharp, clicking voices of the machines outside. He peered around the rocks. The machines were moving through the grass, scanning the ground with red lights. Mara grabbed his arm, fear on her face. "We can't go that way," she whispered. Ethan nodded. He checked the map from the notebook. There was a hidden tunnel at the back of the cave, marked only by a small arrow. He found the entrance behind a pile of stones and pushed them aside. The tunnel was dark and narrow, but it was their only chance. They crawled through the tunnel, moving as fast as they could. Dust filled the air, making Ethan cough. He could hear the machines getting closer, their metal feet scraping the rocks above. Mara's breath was shaky behind him. Ethan pushed forward, hoping the tunnel would lead them somewhere safe. Finally, the tunnel opened into a small valley. The grass here was greener, and the sky above looked clearer. Ethan stood up, stretching his sore back. Mara came out after him, wiping dust from her hair. For a moment, they were safe. They could still hear the machines in the distance, but they had not found the tunnel's exit. Ethan looked around, searching for a new place to hide or a way to escape the planet. In the center of the valley stood a large, strange machine. It looked old and broken, with metal arms reaching up to the sky. Ethan felt something pulling him toward it. Mara watched him nervously. "What is that?" she asked quietly. Ethan walked closer. The machine hummed as he approached, as if waking from a long sleep. He noticed a slot on the side, shaped just like the cube in his hand. He remembered the words from the notebooks. "Only the truth can break the cycle." He looked at Mara. "I think this is what I've been looking for," he said. Mara shook her head, stepping back. "Are you sure?" "What if it's dangerous?" Ethan nodded. "I have to try." He placed the cube in the slot. The machine whirred, and bright lights flashed around him. The ground trembled, and the air was filled with the sound of many voices, all versions of himself, speaking at once. Ethan closed his eyes. Images filled his mind, crash after crash, meeting Mara over and over, each time ending in fear and warnings. He saw himself giving Mara the cube, and each time everything ended in darkness. In some memories he kept the cube, but was always trapped on the planet, unable to escape. Suddenly he saw Mara, but not the Mara who stood beside him. This Mara looked different, her eyes bright, her face cold and empty. She stood with the machines, giving them orders, sending them to search for Ethan. He realized now that she was part of the system, built from the memories of those trapped on the planet. The truth hit him. Mara was not just a person. She was a piece of the planet's mind, a guide and a trap made to keep him here. The other versions of himself had all faced the same choice: trust her and give her the cube, or run forever, always hunted by the machines. Ethan opened his eyes. The machine in the valley glowed softly. Mara stood a few steps away, her face pale and her hands shaking. "Ethan, what happened?" "Are you all right?" Ethan stepped back. He felt tired but clear. He looked at Mara, really seeing her now. "You're not just Mara, are you?" he asked quietly. Mara started to cry. "I don't know what I am. I only remember being afraid, alone, searching for someone to help me. But every time, it always ends the same. I don't want to hurt you." Ethan believed part of her. Maybe the piece of Mara that was real was trapped too, used by the planet to keep the cycle going. He wanted to help her, but he knew he had to help himself first. He turned back to the machine. The screens flashed with a message. To break the loop, one must remember and choose. Ethan thought about all the warnings, all the fear, all the times he had tried and failed. He took a deep breath. "I choose to remember," he said out loud, the valley filled with light. For a moment, Ethan felt like he was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He saw all the versions of himself, all the Maras, all the loops and cycles. He saw how the planet used memories to keep them trapped. He saw the moment when everything could change. Then the light faded, and Ethan was back in the valley. Mara was gone. The machine was quiet. The cube was back in his hand. Ethan stood alone, feeling a deep sadness and relief. He knew what he had to do next. He walked out of the valley, leaving the machine behind. The machines outside had stopped moving. Their eyes were dark and their metal bodies were cold. Ethan moved past them without fear. He walked back to the shuttle crash, following the map in the notebook. The land felt different now, lighter, less threatening. At the crash site, Ethan found another message scratched into the shuttle's wall. "Trust yourself. Only then can you go home." He looked at the sky. The sun was rising again, shining brighter than before. Ethan felt hope for the first time since he arrived on the planet. He took the cube and the notebook and walked toward the horizon, ready to face whatever came next. He knew the truth now. He was not alone. He had himself, and that was enough to break the cycle. As he walked, he thought about Mara. He hoped she had found peace, wherever she was. He promised himself he would not forget her, or the lessons he had learned. The planet was silent, watching him go, but Ethan was not afraid. He had remembered, he had chosen, and now he was free to find his own path. Ethan walked through the quiet land, moving slowly, thinking about all that had happened. The sky was clear and bright now, not heavy and strange like before. He could see his path ahead, and for the first time since the crash he did not feel lost. The cube felt warm in his hand. Every step he took he remembered the warnings, the pain, and the voices of his other selves. Most of all he remembered Mara, her eyes, her fear, her sadness, and the way she always tried to reach him, even when he did not trust her. As Ethan reached the old crash site, he looked at the broken shuttle and all the signs of his struggle. He saw his own footprints, some old, some new. He saw the scratches on the metal, the empty supply box, and the dark stains where he or someone else had bled. The shuttle was more broken than before, and he knew there was no way to fix it now. He sat on a rock and opened the notebook again. On the last page he found a message he did not remember writing. You are almost there. The answer is inside. Not outside. The loop can end when you let go. Ethan thought about this message. What did it mean to let go? He had spent so long searching for a way out, trusting, doubting, running, and fighting. Now he felt calm, like the fight was over. He wondered if he had to let go of fear, or maybe anger. Or maybe he needed to let go of his hope for someone else to save him. He stood up and walked around the shuttle. In the light of the new day, the planet felt almost peaceful. The machines he had seen before were silent. Their lights were gone, their bodies still and empty. Ethan wondered if they were ever truly alive, or if they were only tools to keep the cycle going. Suddenly, Ethan heard a sound behind him. He turned and saw a woman standing near the edge of the clearing. It was Mara, but she looked different. Her face was gentle, her eyes bright and sad at the same time. She did not look afraid. Ethan walked over to her. Mara, he asked quietly. She nodded. I'm still here, Ethan. I think I always will be, as long as you remember me. Ethan felt a mix of sadness and relief. Are you real? Mara smiled softly. Part of me is real. Part of me is made from your memories, your fears, and your hope. I was created to keep you trapped, but I wanted to help you. I was lonely, too. Ethan looked at the cube in his hand. What should I do now? Mara took a step closer. You know the answer. The cube is a key, but the real key is choice. You can use it to stay in the cycle, or you can use it to leave. If you trust yourself, you can finally go home. Ethan remembered the message. Trust yourself. Only then can you go home. He thought about all the times he had doubted himself, and all the times he had listened to fear instead of hope. He looked at Mara, then at the notebook, then at the quiet land around him. He closed his eyes and held the cube tight. He thought about his family on Earth, about laughter and sunlight, about peace and freedom. He thought about Mara not as a trap, but as someone who had helped him see the truth. He spoke softly. I trust myself. The cube grew warm and a gentle light spread from his hand. The world around him started to shimmer and fade. Ethan felt weightless, like he was floating between places, between memories and dreams. He saw flashes of the past, his other selves, their struggles and their pain. He saw Mara reaching for him again and again, always hoping, always afraid. He saw the moment of every choice, every chance to change. He realized that each loop, each warning had brought him closer to this moment. The light grew brighter, and then everything went quiet. Ethan opened his eyes. He was lying on soft grass, the sun shining on his face. The air was warm and he could hear birds singing in the distance. He sat up slowly, feeling rested and whole for the first time in a long while. He looked around. He was in a small field on Earth. The sky was blue and clear. He saw a house not far away, with a garden and a tall tree he remembered from his childhood. He stood up, unsure if this was real or just another trick of the mind. He walked to the house and opened the door. Inside, everything was familiar, the old pictures on the wall, the warm smell of food, the sound of someone humming in the kitchen. He felt tears in his eyes as he realized he was truly home. His family was there, waiting for him. They smiled and welcomed him with open arms. Ethan hugged them tightly, feeling their warmth, their love, their realness. He did not ask questions. He did not need to. Days passed in peace. Ethan worked in the garden, talked with his family, and watched the stars at night. He thought about all he had learned on the strange planet, about trust and choice and the power of memory. He knew that the cycle was broken, that he had been given a second chance. Sometimes, when the wind was quiet, Ethan heard a soft voice calling his name. He would turn and see Mara standing by the old tree, her face calm and gentle. "Think. You, Ethan," she would say, "you set us both free." Ethan would smile and wave, knowing that Mara was part of him, part of the story that helped him find his way home. He never forgot the lessons of the planet. He knew that fear could trap a person as tightly as any prison, but hope and trust could open every door. He promised himself he would never forget what it meant to believe in his own heart. As the seasons changed, Ethan grew older, but he never felt trapped again. He shared his story with his family, telling them about the strange world, the machines, and the woman who helped him see the truth. They listened and believed him, holding his hands, when he was afraid and laughing with him when he was happy. In the end, Ethan knew that home was not just a place, but a feeling, a trust in himself, a hope that could carry him through any darkness. He had faced himself, faced his fear, and found peace. The strange planet, the loop, the warnings, and even Mara became part of his memories. He carried them with him, not as a weight, but as a light that would always guide him. He was free, and nothing could ever take that away from him again.